Helldivers has a bigger controversy than Drake versus Kendrick. ASUS has their Computex stuff leaked. And Samsung wants to get rid of AMD for their GPUs. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news that I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Monday, May 6, 2024. We're going to start off today talking about the firestorm of controversy that just swept over the weekend. And no, I'm not talking about Kendrick Lamar dropping track after track after track against Drake, but rather the fact that Helldivers 2 is now going to start requiring a PlayStation Network login. This is something that they were initially supposed to have at launch, but there were technical issues that prevented it from happening. But this is turned into a much bigger problem than you just have to log in somewhere else. Because it turns out this is going to exclude people who are not able to have a PlayStation Network in their country, despite the fact that they have been happily and enjoyably playing Helldivers 2 since launch. This has led to the CEO of the development company behind Helldivers, Arrowhead, to come out and say that he doesn't actually know what the plan is for people who can't get PSN accounts in their region. And based on developer discussions that are happening in the Helldivers Discord, it appears that this is being pushed by Sony and not necessarily the makers of the game, which is Arrowhead Studios. This is being pushed by Sony as the publisher, which led to the internet as a whole coming out and basically review bombing Helldivers 2. 211,000 negative reviews have been posted on Helldivers 2 as of the time of reporting, which has made it overwhelmingly negative in the short term, and it's definitely trending towards negative overall. And this has led to a player count decrease as well over the weekend. But with that, you see Valve getting in on the action because they are starting to issue refunds to people who actually purchased the game despite how many hours they put in. I saw reports over the weekend on Twitter of people with over 250 hours in Helldivers 2 successfully getting a refund from Steam on the game. Valve also making it so that Helldivers got removed from 177 countries on the Steam storefront page because they're not actually able to have a PlayStation Network account. So Valve making sure that the people who can't get PSN Network accounts actually aren't even able to purchase the game any further, and likely if you're in one of those regions, it appears that they're going to give you a refund on the game in case you're affected by it. Now there are some other industry things that are happening with Ghost of Tsushima, which is supposed to get its PC port later this month, coming out and saying preemptively you do not need this to play the single player version of the game. However, it will be required for the online multiplayer mode, which kind of seems to be exactly what's happening with Helldivers. So it seems like they're stuck in the same situation, but Ghost of Tsushima is primarily a single player game, whereas Helldivers is primarily co-op. And people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to enjoy Helldivers 2 have been playing it since launch, but now that Sony is bullheadedly requiring this PSN login, it's making it so that they can no longer do that. The internet is just pissed as a whole against Helldivers 2, specifically with Sony over this whole thing. I saw so many comments of I've never seen a golden goose get shot like this before. Helldivers was one of the most iconic games that have come out this year. It launched at a reasonable price point of only $40. I was shocked that it didn't require you to log in with the PlayStation Network. It had crossplay. It made it so that it was very accessible, great developer updates, lacking microtransaction exploitation. It did have microtransactions, but in a way that felt fair and reasonable and did not impact gameplay too much. Everything that the Helldivers devs were doing seemed to be on a trajectory of them being a beloved studio, and then Sony comes out and says, hey, frick all of the hard work and progress that you made in trying to make sure that your community loves you. We want your data, which Sony hasn't had a great track record of keeping that safe, but we'll see how this plays out. I suspect Sony's gonna back down. That's just my internal feeling on this, especially with the sheer domination with which the community has come out and said, no, we're not going to accept this over to Sony. We'll keep you updated on how this plays out. It does not appear to be a good look for Sony right now. What looks really good is an AMD 7950X3D with more 3D V cache. It's popping up. Somebody over on a Bilibili forum shows off this 192 megabyte 3D V cache 7950X3D, which is significantly more than the original chip because that's in the 140 megabyte region. So this appears to have an extra stack of cache on this chip. Now, it's not clear if this is an engineering sample, potentially a pre-production sample of something that's going to be released in the future, or if it's just a Windows recording error of that engineering sample. example, and that it actually has that cache disabled despite the fact that it's on the chip. Likely this won't make a lot of difference for people who are buying the CPU. I doubt this is something that AMD is going to really push, unless like they're going to do a surprise launch of Ryzen 9000 at Computex alongside having an X3D V2 for all of the 7000 series. So you get a 7800 X3D with more 3D V cache. That's probably not going to happen, but it would be intriguing. I'd be intrigued. And I'm intrigued what deals Reece has for you today.
Yo, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals out on the internet. Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you guys had a good weekend. And hey, we've got some deals for you today. Starting off with this Logitech G435 Lightspeed wireless gaming headset for only $49.99, making it $30 off. But then next up, we have this Intel Core i9-12900KF, which doesn't feature an iGPU, but it's going for only $272.98 with the included promo code, making it $85 and a single cent off. And then lastly, we have the Shure SM7DB, which is the new version of the microphone that includes a built-in preamp, so you don't have to go buy an external third-party one. You can pick this up around the internet for only $449, making it $175 off. And hey, with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description down below. But until next time, I'm gonna hand you off back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Thanks, Reece, but we'll be anticipating some deals that ASUS is going to have on some of the things that they're going to be announcing at Computex, because it looks like a large list of the things that ASUS is going to have at Computex has been at least released, which includes Qualcomm laptops of the Snapdragon X series stuff, as well as a Thor 1600 watt 3 titanium power supply, as well as that Thor battery backup power supply thing. Additionally, it looks like there's going to be a ROG Ally V2 2024 edition shown off as well. The rumors around that is that it's not necessarily going to change very much, besides they changed the SD card layout so that that doesn't get murdered by heat like it did on the original edition. But ASUS is going to have an event for this on June 3rd, which we actually should be covering as part of our Computex coverage. So we'll show that off to you, but it does look like there's no new graphics cards that are going to be launched. There was this really terrible rumor that came out that the RTX 5090 might show up at Computex, and there's really no substantiation for that. If there was the chance of an RTX 5090, it would be at the ASUS setup. I never really put much stock in the rumor that there was going to be a 5090 unveiling by NVIDIA at Computex, especially since what their keynote discussions about has nothing to do with gaming. It's all about AI. I think they'll have a more gaming focused keynote. Probably wait for Gamescom or potentially even the Game Awards announcement for a 5090. That I'm more likely to believe it'll happen towards the end of the year. The Computex seems way too soon. But while we're waiting for the ROG Ally V2, somebody's updated it themselves. This isn't the battery mod that we talked about in a previous episode of Hot News that iFixit was selling, but it's a clamshell screen mod so that you can have two screens on the ROG Ally with a 3D printed backplate and everything, that you can make it into a clamshell and clamp it closed. And I love this. This is fantastic. I'm thinking maybe we might try it ourselves. Put that alongside the battery mod. We'd have to see how both of them could work in concordance, but just create the ultimate monstrosity nonsense of a ROG Ally with extra battery life and big ol' extra screen. And Spotify wants to give you big ol' extra audio quality because it looks like they're ready to launch their lossless audio version. This is going to come out in their Spotify lossless setup, which it used to be called Spotify Hi-Fi. They appear to be changing that, and it's going to be part of the Su Premium plan, which is a higher end plan that you have to pay a little bit more money for, and it looks like you're going to get roughly 2 megabit per second audio quality in case that's something you want. Amazon, Apple, and Tidal have all had this as part of their feature set for quite some time now. Spotify has been the one that's lagging behind, but they are one of the largest players in the music streaming space, so it's good to see them catch up. And that's what Intel's hoping they're going to be able to do with their Arrow Lake chips. And now we got some details on when roughly we can expect a little bit more to come out about these CPUs. An overclocker was at an MSI event over in China, and turns out that they can start talking about it sometime in the third quarter, potentially might launch in Q4. This did remind me, because I had completely wiped this from my memory, that Arrow Lake, which is the CPU generation we're expected to come out, was initially supposed to launch last year, and there were supposed to be Meteor Lake versions of the laptop chip that were supposed to be on desktop. That got completely canceled, and instead we got Raptor Lake Refresh. And now we're seeing what the fruits of that are with the instability issues that happened with Intel. But it turns out that these Arrow Lake chips, the Ultra 285K, how are we going to choose to pronounce this? We got to come up with it as the PC culture before the Intel tells us how to do it. We got to decide how are we 285K. like a 5K. I think we should try to pronounce it like that. Anyways, Intel might be downclocking it a little bit from what the 14900KS is to be around 5.5 gigahertz. That might potentially make it so that the 285K is slightly slower in single core performance, but maybe it'll get an IPC boost. But there are some more leaked details on what the motherboard situation is going to be with the Z890 motherboards, having Thunderbolt 4 support baked in the highest end. Ultra 9 285K is going to have 4 XE LPG cores, which will be Battle Mage graphics to potentially allow it to be an okay integrated GPU. We got those leaked benchmarks of the Battle Mage GPU that's supposed to be on laptops that are launching, that HP one, and having 4 of those cores seems to be like you would be able to get by. Why would you buy, a $600 CPU in order to play on integrated graphics? Not a likely thing, but the leaked benchmarks we had was for a 7-core version, and that one really performed very well. So I think 4 cores on an integrated graphics on an high-end CPU would allow you to do quite a bit under the hood without having a graphics card installed. So this seems to be all intriguing information about Arrow Lake. Intel is going to have to do a lot to rebuild their brand. We're still waiting on their statement with regards to the stability on 13th and 14th gen. They're going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting to get people to trust them for that. Arrow Lake, I think, especially since it's been delayed so much, we'll have to wait and see how impressive it actually is. We are expecting AMD to launch Ryzen 9000 at Computex, so we'll have to see how it's going. But AMD is definitely in the driver's seat on the CPU side. But on the GPU side, looks like they might be getting out of the phone game altogether, because reports are coming out that Samsung is looking to make their own graphics card for their upcoming Exynos chips, despite the fact that they've been working with AMD to make the Exynos RDNA GPUs since 2019. Allegedly, the contract should be up sometime this year or next year, which means that the 2026, that the Galaxy S26 could all be made in-house with a Dream chip by Samsung. So the current gen Eclipse 940 GPU is based on RDNA 3. The Eclipse 950, which is supposed to come out next year, could potentially be, likely would be RDNA 3.5, maybe with increased ray tracing for all of the ray tracing needs that you have on your phone. But then Samsung will have their own fully feature set SoC that is not made by Qualcomm, potentially could keep up with Apple. We'll have to see. I'm excited to see what the benchmarks are going to be like on that, but it appears that AMD's small stint in making phone GPUs just went absolutely nowhere, because if they were any good, I'm sure Samsung would have renewed the contract, but that's not what's happening. But what did happen was y'all commented on the videos that we released last week. So let's get into the comment response specifically on the weekend videos. We had one released by Kyler on the Zero Mouse knockoff, as well as one released by Reece on how to make streaming easier for you. Over on Floatplane, we got Northern Llama saying, "Legend." I agree. Absolutely good stuff by Reece. It was a fun video. But on YouTube, we got some degenerates talking. James saying, "You blurred Reece's feet. Give the people what they want." Catlin dropped some lore on us over on our stream on Friday, saying that Reece refused to film his feet unless they were going to be censored. So you will never get Reece's feet uncensored unless... I don't know, maybe we'll find a way to do that on stream in the future. But Z-Shrink saying, "Absolutely amazing video. The edit of blurring the feet was top notch. I love that you went through cheap, standard, and more expensive options and whether it was really needed. The audio section is so true, and even after a reboot, it still might not work because your audio driver / software may have updated, completely changing how it's seen in OBS. Thanks, Logitech." And then Alpaca Whacker saying, "Solid advice. I knew about most of this stuff already, but there is still 1 or 2 things I could take away from this, and I think that's the main point. It doesn't matter how long you've been streaming for, there's always more you can learn." And then on Kyler's video over on Floatplane, we had Kryptonite saying, "I almost dislike this video because of your Subaru. Good job with the content. Miss you on the news." Kryptonite, I downvoted this comment that you left because how dare you? The Subaru Baja is an impeccable piece of American history, and I will not allow it to be slandered. It's an impeccable piece of UFD tech history. Kyler getting the Baja is the single greatest thing that happened to him since he's worked here. All right, I won't hear any just slander against the name of his car. All right, listen, the Baja stands alone in its own category of being awesome. Then over on YouTube, we got Gav is Cool saying, someone steal my idea, a mouse and a mouse pad with repelling magnets that make the mouse hover over the mouse pad, therefore giving it zero friction. I'm sure that's possible, but then you'd also have like the throw distance of the laser would have to be compensated for. I'm sure it could be thought out, but then you have to deal with like the varying height that would happen from that. Like, it's an okay idea, but that introduces more variability in where the mouse is being positioned from whatever surface it's hovering over, so it couldn't actually easily get that data that it needed, especially because if you're trying to move fast, you're likely to exert more force and move the mouse down. It's possible that would have to be like a one-off prototype. I don't think that's something that could ever be sold. And Brutal Honesty says, one of Kyler's best videos. Watch the full thing. Definitely want to follow up if he gets his hand on the genuine article. All of the jars said BBM. Bare bones mouse, nice. And then Lazy Turf Battler said Optimum Tech, which was then followed by a whole host of furrows. That was a lot of furrows. Thank you all for rolling that comment. And then on Friday's episode of Hot News, let's get into what y'all said over on YouTube. KTVX saying, gamers aren't embracing Windows 11. It comes by default with the new devices. Every ROG Ally Legion Go that gets bought is a new Windows 11 user on Steam. It's more popular with gamers because we tend to get more recent hardware than average users. Yeah, I realized that was something, that was a point that I failed to make in terms of why the Windows 11 market share was better on Steam versus regular adoption. I did mention that in the follow-up short that we did, that, you know, we released before Hot News on Friday. So like, we're on the same wavelength. I just didn't mention it in the video. So it's a very good point, and I absolutely agree. Then Tech Wando saying, if I was make to guess why Windows 11 was more popular for gamers, is because of the notion that you need it for 12th, 13th, 14th gen Intel CPUs. I have a disagreement with that, although I know that Intel has done a lot of pushing to be like, Windows 11 is best, but their thread director, which you need for the 12th, 13th, 14th gen CPUs, works just fine on Windows 10. So I don't, maybe the more mainstream thought process is akin to that idea, and that could explain it, but I personally have had no problems running any of those chips on Windows 10, which I've done quite a bit. Then we got ASUS saying, I went to Micro Center yesterday to exchange my 13900K and walked out with a 7800X3D motherboard. My fans will be able to rest now. And then we got a beer saying, him, holy sure, Intel, your chips are bad. Also him, hey, we're giving out this PC, 14900KS. Yes, we did that on Friday over on Twitch. We gave away a PC that a 14900KS 4090 with the height thick Q60. It was a great time. We definitely enjoyed it. Part of that reason was because Intel sent me the 14900KS, not sponsored. They were just like, hey, we're launching this. If you want to do something with it, feel free to do something with it. We're just gonna send it to you. So I got it, and I mean, it's a free computer, man. Like, I get that maybe this is not everybody's cup of tea. If you already have, you know, a 7800X3D, well, you're not gonna upgrade to this. But if you don't have a computer, well, 14900KS is going to be way better than that, regardless of how unstable it is, because you can fix that in the BIOS. It's not like they're unstable and there's no solution and the chip's going to die. I've already put the baseline profile on the computer. I've already made sure that the settings are where they need to be for the chip to be stable. The problem with this whole thing is that I had to do that and the motherboard didn't do it by default. That's the big hiccup here, but it's a free CPU. It's a free computer. I'm never gonna apologize regardless of how bad the hardware is. It's a lot of this. I mean, there are some things that's worse than nothing, but the 14900KS, even if it's not stable at stock settings, it's still better than nothing, for sure. It's better than most people's systems, even with the instability. But also, like, the follow-up, the PC that we're giving away now, which you can come watch us over on Twitch in order to gain entries for that, is a Ryzen 7 7800X3D. Like, we'll give away whatever. It's this PC right here. We built it on Friday. It's a gorgeous looking system. We're waiting on the Noctua 4080 Super to come in, so that'll sit in right there. But if Intel wants to give me more hardware to give away, if Intel was like, hey, we're gonna give you 1,000 14900KSs, I would build 1,000 PCs to give away. Okay, I'm not here to say no, this is not, even if it's not perfect. I'm not gonna withhold it and be like, hey, listen, never mind. You don't deserve this because you need a I don't know what my point is anymore. It's free. It's fun. I love giving away PCs. People get to have massive upgrades. It's a thing we love to do over on Twitch. And that's where you can find me next, in case you want to come see me. But you could also wait till Hot News tomorrow, because we'll do that then.